You want a snack, Fraser? You want a snack? Here you go. All you want is snacks, right? There you go. Hey, good evening. Good evening, everybody. How are you doing? Let's see if I can. Yeah. How's everybody doing? Good evening. Hi, Sheila. Good to see you here, as always. You know, it's always amazing in life when you become somebody who has some kind of a public presence. It just, now I know what people are talking about when they talk about that experience. I never really knew much about it because I've always been sort of a quiet, unknown person. But as soon as you have any sort of, anyway, it's interesting how it all works. So I've heard people like Joe Rogan say they don't even read the comments in their videos because it just gets so, so horrendous. Anyway, it's interesting how people online, in terms of how they choose to communicate. I would imagine that 99% of people, if they were standing across from you, would not say the things that they say directly to your face the way they say them in comments. But it's all good. Hello, Jalal. How you doing? As you filter in, if you don't mind, could you please just mention if you're from a country that's outside the United States? Could you please write it in? I'm just curious to see who's coming in tonight. So I'm always amazed. Sometimes we have people, somebody says, not that interesting. Well, I'm not sure what you mean, William Money Magnet. What I'm getting at is, I don't know if you've experienced this before, William. It's just something, if you're somebody who's completely anonymous in the world, you just don't deal with this ever, as I have been for most of my life. Anyway, yeah, I'm curious to see where people are from, so if you want to share where you're from, that'd be cool. From China, welcome. Welcome, Abu Jama. Are you from China or are you in China right now? I'm more curious where people are right now, not where you're originally from. Just out of curiosity. So, some of them are from Canada. Yeah, I mean, I think my family's from Europe, I think. But I'm definitely in the U.S. Arkansas, California. In China for business. Okay, got it. From Yo Mama. Okay, well, I think that's probably enough of you tonight. Thank you for coming by, though. Nice having you. Maybe next time we can do it a little differently. Kansas, United States. Yeah, Kansas is a great state. Lots of great people in Kansas. And the curious thing is Moscow. Great. Welcome from Moscow. Or Moscow, Idaho? Maybe I'm missing that. I thought it said Moscow, Russia. Moscow, Idaho, I guess. Never been to Moscow. Never heard of Moscow, Idaho. Michigan, Florida, Phoenix. Someone says, love your content. Thank you very much, Abo. Thank you. I've filmed so many videos recently that I haven't posted yet, so I have a lot of work to do on editing. So keep an eye out. There should be a whole explosion of content coming out in the next 4 days. I'm probably going to stagger them a little bit. But man, I heard this before. For those of you know who Quinn the Eskimo is, first of all, I've seen people completely giving him a hard time for his name. If you don't know where his name came from, it came from a song by a group called Manfred Mann's Earth Band. And so that's why he chose the name, not because he thinks he's going to make fun of people who are of the Inuit culture in the North Pole. And, someone said, thank you, Heel. Somebody said that Quinn and myself are white saviors for Palestinians. And that we think because we're white, somehow we can fix things. I mean, give me a fucking break. We're people just speaking out after we learn about an injustice, right? We could be talking about any issue in that same framework. So I just don't understand why people can be such haters, because why wouldn't you encourage anybody to try to stand up for someone who's being marginalized, right? Doesn't matter who they are. And it's one thing if somebody's like fundraising and stealing all the money, or that is worthy of a ton of criticism, right? But just someone who's just speaking out publicly. I mean, I've been accused of getting paid for this, like by Cotter or whatever the hell. It's absurd. But however, I do know people who are being paid through evidence, but I guess others may be, but through my hunch for the Israeli side. And remember that the Israeli side paid college students $250 each to attend the pro-Israel march in Washington, D.C. I guess it was back about 2 months ago now, or whatever it was. Yeah, thank you saying that Field of Daisies. Yeah, someone says they enjoy them and they learn a lot. That's my goal, is to share some of the many, many things that I've crossed. I'm just lucky that I've had time to do it, quite frankly. And my hobby has been reading and learning and watching a lot of stuff on YouTube. And you can't always trust what you read or learn, right? You have to double check it. But I don't know. I like to say that nobody has a nobody has a conclusion on the truth. Yeah, I've addressed that so many times, particle person. I just, no thanks. No thanks. Yeah, I'll do that. Um, you know, check for yourself. No matter who says what, I always say to the audience, don't trust me. Don't take anyone's word for anything. Do your own research and check it out. I really go out of my way to try. I've never once said anything that's knowingly false. I would never do that just to support an argument. And as I've said about the evidence that's supposed to come out about what happened on the 7th, if evidence does show that some of these alleged atrocities took place, I'm more than happy to reveal that to the audience and just tell them, hey, it is what it is. It is what it is. But at the same time, it's hard to just take someone's word for it. There's a video that I'm going to be posting tomorrow probably, and it has a former assistant to Colin Powell, he's deceased, but he was the Secretary of Defense in the George Bush administration, George W. Bush. So he was involved with the Iraq War, etc. But the assistant said, I've been dealing with the Israelis for decades. You can't trust a single word that comes out of their mouths, ever. And that's a pretty big statement from somebody who used to work in U.S. government and in foreign policy. So, I've felt the same way, and it's nice when I hear somebody else corroborate that, because that's just what it seems like to me. And I've said this again, I would love to be able to say something kind about Israel, the way their leaders act, the things that they do, the things that they say, and I'm sympathetic to what happened on the 7th insofar as the civilians that were harmed, obviously. But you get, if you take a position on these things, I've been called a hater of Jewish people. I've been called an anti-Semite. I've been called a lover of T-word. I've been called a lover of the H group. That I have some sort of desire to unalive Jew. What? It's just absurdity. And I think the problem is, I just listened to. I don't know if you've seen this interview. It's floating around right now on the on the YouTube circuit. But it's an interview that Dave Smith, the comedian Dave Smith, the libertarian advocate, he did with RFK Jr. about Israel. And they have different points of view. Dave Smith sort of, I think, Dave Smith is Jewish, but he takes sort of the more secular, anti-Zionist position. And of course, if you followed RFK Jr. for any amount of time, he is somebody who's just absolutely over the top. I mean, it sounds like somebody literally gave him a programming lesson of Israeli talking points. I mean, the guy is just one after the other. And the thing that I wonder about, if you don't know who RFK Jr. is and what he's all about, he talks about digging deep and learning about things like the pharmaceutical industry, doing the research, reading the papers, like getting to the facts. And also with respect to regulatory capture, because he's worked as an attorney to protect against corporations. He's protected like people that live in communities that have been unfortunately like affected negatively by pollution from corporations. He has a thing called the Waterkeepers Alliance. Robert Kennedy Jr., he's one of the highest polling third-party candidate. He is the highest polling third-party candidate for U.S. president right now. So he's trying to get some kind of a thing where he can get on the ballot. I think he wants to be on the libertarian ticket just because it makes his path much easier. But I don't think Dave Smith's going to buy it at all because of his positions on supporting what's happening in Israel right now. It just doesn't make sense to me for a guy that's that smart and that hardworking to dig behind the curtain. He'd have to be a complete moron not to see this one. I mean, it's not that hard once you study it to understand what's what and who's who. So I don't know. I don't want to impugn I never like to impugn people's motives because I don't know. But it does seem odd, right? So, yeah, maybe he is compromised. I thought about that a lot, by the way, because when somebody's that vociferous and that much of an advocate, it seems odd anyway, but maybe there is something hanging over his head, whether it be money because he knows he can't get elected without that, or maybe it be something else personal. I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but it does seem odd, I think. Hello from Bali, Indonesia. Nice to see you. Yeah, other people are saying they believe he's compromised. RFP was paid off by Timothy Mellon. I'm not sure who that is. I have to look that person up. I'm from Ireland, and the Kennedys have always been a little dodgy. Yeah, I agree. I mean, they're a mix, I think. They're part establishment and they're part pushback against some of the internal permanent establishment, like the intelligence groups. And I think that's what hurt them. Oh, I didn't know he was on the log of the Epstein Island plane or whatever it's called. The what is it called? The something express? Lolita Express, I think they called it. But yeah, somebody from Ireland says they were great for civil rights, but not so much for Vietnam. I heard that Kennedy actually was trying to tamper down the escalation in Vietnam. And then when Johnson came in, it picked right back up again. But maybe I'm wrong about that. I know that Kennedy was trying to get inspections in on Israeli nuclear plants because he did not want to have that go willy-nilly. And then the other thing he did was he tried to make sure that the Israel lobby stayed as a registered foreign agent. And that was a big deal because what did they gain by being domestic? They don't pay taxes and they don't have to report a penny of how they get their funding. And that's a big deal. So things like corporations and high net worth donors and even other countries can donate money and we have no idea where it's coming from. Even the government could donate money to it. We have no idea if that money is being channeled into groups like AIPAC. We don't know. And so I think everything should be transparent, right? And I think that having these dark money pools and having, I mean, this is the other, I've talked about this at length. People always say, well, what can we do? I was on a live today speaking to people in Gaza through an interpreter, and they were asking me questions about, like, what can be done to change what we're seeing? Like, what is the path to get this stuff changed? Is it calling senators? Is it running third-party candidates? I don't know if you heard that Quinn the Eskimo just ran a video saying that they're creating a pro-Palestinian PAC, Political Action Committee, and they're raising money. And the idea is to try to fight money with money. And that's a great idea. The problem is that there's so much of it on that side that it's going to be really difficult to even put up a small fraction of what comes against anybody who's pro-Palestine, unfortunately. And so, the conclusion that you probably heard me say it before. If you haven't, do me a favor also. If anybody's new here, I don't want to waste your time by repeating something that everybody knows. But if you could, while we're waiting for people to tell us, if you're new, just type the number 1 in the chat, please. And the other thing I want to mention is if you're someone who disagrees, if you take a pro-Israeli standpoint, if you want to come up and talk, the way that I run my lives, hi, Blurda, nice to see you. Thanks for being here. I'm always respectful. I always let people speak. I never mute people. Hey, Kathy Muno, how you doing, man? How you doing, Kathy? Good to see you. Somebody says they're from Malaysia. I'm new. Hey, that's Kathy. Great, Kathy. Yeah, nice to see you here. Thanks for being here. I did not know that Israel has a higher per capita of billionaires than the U.S. That's crazy. I didn't know. Thanks for telling me that. Hi, Kevin York. Nice to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, it's good to see new people come in. Thank you for doing it. So, for those of you who are new, my name is Chip Barnes. It says it in the corner. I'm someone who tries. I'm not a professional. I don't have a PhD. I'm just a guy from the United States, former Army officer, served in the first Persian Gulf War back in 1990 on the front lines in a tank unit. So I've seen war up front and close. It's really bad. Hi, Noriza. Nice to see you. And, there's nothing good coming of what's happening in Gaza, obviously, right? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. But I just happen to have learned about the Israel-Palestine issue when I was 21 years old, and I'm 56 now. So, most Americans may not have been aware of much of it because it's off people's radar. And so I just happened to be lucky enough to bump into this. One of my college classmates did a talk on the subject. She talked about what was called the First Intifada, or Big Uprising of Palestinians, back in 1987. And so she gave this as a part of her senior project. We all had to do one and then give like an hour-long talk. And I was just blown away. I had no idea what was going on as a young person. I'd always heard that, Israel's our friend. And they're a safe place for Jewish people. It's a Jewish homeland. And it's the only place in the world, in the Middle East, where people can be safe from these crazy Arab people that all they want to do is unalive the Jewish people. That's the story I got in my whole life. That's all I knew. And so the question is, why was that? Why was I only told that version of it? And why was it so different when I heard my college classmate talk about it the way that she did from having researched it? And back then we only had books. I know this sounds crazy to people who are younger. But up until the age of my being about 27 or 28, we didn't have any internet. There was no internet. So if you wanted to learn something, you had to either go to a store and buy a book or go to a library. I know that sounds, who goes to a library now, right? You can Google stuff. But I was curious. After I learned that, it really just kind of shook me up. And so I tried to read more. So as I found books I could read on it, I read those. I've read Ilan Pappé's work, Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, a bunch of Norman Finkelstein's work, just as best I could. And then, of course, over the years, as the different peace agreements went down and stuff, and again, I was born in 1967, so I haven't seen all of this, but I've seen a good bit of it when I was old enough to start understanding it. And it's only gotten worse and worse for Palestinians. And so, I've been called a pro-Palestinian advocate. I'm not really that. I'm someone who tries to take a look at different political situations and try to make sense of it. And then my conscience tells me when I find a situation where people are marginalized or subjugated to great harm by another more powerful force, to sort of look at things from their point of view. That's just how I look at stuff. And, I understand people who may be Israeli see it differently. And they're looking at it from their point of view. And I get that. But like I said, if you're someone who supports the Israeli point of view, just to let you all know kind of how I do my thing, I go live here on TikTok, usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday, like tonight, from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then I do every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday from 12 noon until at least 2 p.m., sometimes longer. And so that's 6 days a week, at least 2 hours at a time. Sometimes the lives can last 4 to 6 hours. Sunday's live lasted 7.5 hours. And it was actually 9 hours. If you can believe that, we did a 9-hour live yesterday. How crazy is that? It was from 12 noon until about 9:15. So that's not the usual. But my format, just to let you know, is I try to be considerate and polite, and I try to listen, and I try to learn from others. I never call people names. I never shout over top of somebody. We don't get into these shouting matches. Like a lot of these lives, you can't hear anybody. And the point of all that is to have a constructive dialogue and respectful as best we can. And people's emotions get hot. I understand people disagree vehemently about this issue, and they see it from completely different points of view. And that's okay. But the point is, if we're ever going to have peace, we have to figure some common ground where people can decide to live with, some sort of reconciliation. And I think that it's possible, but it's going to require a serious shift in the mindset and the leadership in Israel. And I'm not going to blame Israel for everything. According to their security needs, they've had to deal with their thing, and they've just done it in ways that I think are counterproductive. And the way they speak about the conflict, I think, is completely ass backwards, right? I think they just lie and lie and lie and try to make the other side look bad, and they've done a good job of it. Let's face it, most of the world thinks that the Palestinians are the bad guys, or at least up until recently. The only difference is after 10/7, the things that the Israelis have done in response have shown people in real time. This is like an ongoing G side, but in real time on live TV, or at least on recorded video on different social media like this. So that is the only good thing in my mind that's come out of this, because it's been intense suffering and sacrifice, more so than usual, because Israel periodically goes into Gaza and just slams the crap out of the place, calls it mowing the lawn. And Palestinians are no strangers to having buildings blown up and having people targeted by snipers or whatever it may be. That's common practice and has been for decades, unfortunately. But through their sacrifice, through their martyrdom this time, something is changing politically. And for their sake, I say thank goodness, because they've been stuck in this isolated situation where not many people are focused on it, just those of us who have been lucky enough to kind of find out. And it's time for more people to know about this and advocate on behalf of a fair solution, because that's the bottom line. And the other thing for the Israeli side of it, and again, I want everyone to have peace and have comfort and security. I don't want rockets to be raining down on Tel Aviv or wherever. I want people to be able to live their lives with their families and live long, healthy, prosperous lives in peace. But if you're going to occupy somebody else and control their territory by blockading them in and having a siege on all the goods and water and fuel and electricity and other things like that, it's hard to ask somebody else to sit back and just deal. Right? I think the script was flipped. I don't think most people who are Jewish Israelis would want to have that happening to them. We've seen historical examples of it happening way worse. So I think the point is that there is a solution to this, but it's not going to happen probably in a two-state version, because of the physical changes to the land over the last, since 1967, all the settlements that have been condemned. Somebody's asking me, why is there a blockade? I think the point of this is, and let me answer it this way. So the reason why, from the Israeli perspective, they chose to blockade the Gaza Strip is because in 2005, when they forcibly evacuated their settlers and they withdrew from their settlements, they formerly left the Gaza Strip where they had settled in the north. So in the later parts of 2005, in response, the Israeli point of view is all that happened is that the resistance, the T group, fired rockets. So the party line that you'll hear is, we gave back Gaza, we got rockets in return. That's the narrative that you'll hear. But let me peel back the onion just a little bit about that. So here's a question for those who see it from that vantage point. If you were an Israeli Jewish person, or let's say you're just a Jewish person and the script was flipped, and some of you are living in Gaza, which is a lot of refugees, obviously, and many of you are living elsewhere in other territory, but you see yourselves as a people, right? You don't see yourselves as the Gaza people versus the West Bank people. You see yourselves as Palestinians. So if you're recognizing that, A, you're glad to have territory back that somebody left, that's a great thing, right? You're getting some of the land back that people have been living on that you're used to calling your land. However, you still have your entire brothers and sisters, the 3/5 of the population of the entire Palestinian people are in the West Bank. So there's a majority of people in the West Bank. So if you're somebody who sees the inequities of the occupation of the West Bank as in solidarity with your brothers and sisters of your same people, you're not going to stop resisting, or at least you're probably not going to stop resisting, because you see the greater injustice still being maintained. So that's common language. John Jaco, they were offered 5 times a peace deal. Do the studying. Peel back the onion, you'll find out that unfortunately, none of the so-called great deals that have been offered to the quote-unquote Arabs were worth a damn. There are officials that have publicly said on the Israeli side that if I were the Palestinians, I would not have taken those deals. So do a little more research. That's the standard. These are a lot of the standard talking points that come up, unfortunately. And one of the things I've learned in my journey, which sounds very condescending, but it is what it is that I've realized that most of those who speak from the other vantage point are completely unaware of some of the actual realities that they're speaking about, and that it's stuff that's been sent down the line, either throughout the diaspora, through people who happen to believe in the state of Israel and support it, as well as inside of Israel. It's the same language, so it's got to be programmed. So the point is, if you take the time to really read into it, and nobody has a monopoly on truth, right? But I don't know anybody in Palestine. I don't know anybody in Israel. I really don't want to take a side. People blame me all the time. Oh, you're so one-sided. No, I'm not. If the script was flipped, I'd be supporting Jewish people because they're the ones being marginalized. It just so happens in this case, the people doing the marginalization to Palestinians happen to be Jewish and Zionist. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. So the point about this is, for those of you who feel that the peace deals have been there, read up about it. Read Norman Finkelstein. Go through it page by page by page by page by page. You'll learn that what you're saying is not accurate. And that if you're somebody who wants to take the short end of a bad deal and call it a good deal, that's disingenuous. So just do the reading. Listen, I could spend 3 or 4 hours on a live going through it painstakingly, point by point. I'm not going to do it. It's there to be read, or you can go on YouTube and type in history of Israel-Palestine peace process, and you can learn all the ins and outs. So, and John says he's done the reading. John, I tell you what, if you got $10,000, I will sit down with you and we'll bring some scholars in from both sides and we'll go through it bit by bit, and we'll go through all the diplomats that have talked about it and all the books that have been written about the process. And if you're right and I'm wrong, you get the 10K. And if I'm right and you're wrong, I get to keep the 10K. And if you want to take that deal up, I'm all about it. I will do it 100 times out of 100 times. So, well, I'll tell you what, DM me, John Jaco, DM me. Send me. I'll follow you back right now. I'm following you. DM me. We'll make it happen. We'll put it on a live broadcast. That'd be fun, actually. Yeah, please do it. So do I. Let's do it. And then we'll bring on authors from both sides. We'll go through the details. We'll listen to these people on both sides, and we'll see what happened. Because there was no such thing as giving people a good peace deal. Deals have been put forward. Offers have been put forward. They weren't good offers. They weren't good deals. Because that's subjective, right? You can say it was a good deal. Well, we offered them 80% of this. Yeah, but if you have a territory that's not free in terms of your own security, and you don't have the ability to defend yourself, and you don't have any ability to have any sort of controls over your territorial boundaries, that's not freedom. That's a shit sandwich packaged up as a freedom deal. So come on, send me a DM. For now, we'll go to other territory. So, and John, I'm not going to respond to any more of your points. If you want to come up and talk, though, maybe you're on there. We can talk about it. That'd be fun. I'm going to bring up the Voice. Speaking of a guest, hang out for a second, though, Voice. I'm just bringing you up for a sec. But John Jaco, come on up. Come as a guest. We'll talk it through a little bit. We'll see what we can come up for. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I got it all wrong. It's possible. But I have spent a lot of time trying to figure this stuff out. Just because, why wouldn't Palestinians take a deal? Why would, quote, the Arabs not want peace? Do they just hate Jewish people and all they want to do is attack Jewish people and push them into the sea, as many people say? Or do they want self-determination and freedom from occupation and freedom from blockade, and therefore they're trying to figure out a way to get there with frustration mounting over many decades because the legitimate peace process has been stifled by people who say they want peace or a path to peace, but they never actually bring stuff to the table that can allow for peace to occur. And I think as an independent observer, I think that's a fair criticism to lay at the foot of the Israelis. And I think anybody who's being genuine and not looking at it from one side or the other will say, hey, I understand why these people wouldn't want to take those deals. They're not good deals. And what happened was, I don't know how this worked. I'll even show you this. This is an example. This is a piece of cornbread. But if there was a piece of cornbread, or let's say a piece of birthday cake that myself and one of my siblings wanted, and what my mom would do is say, okay, you get to cut it, and the other sibling gets to pick the piece. That's pretty even, right? So if someone's going to cut it 50-50, so it's a fair deal. That's not what happened in these deals over the years. No, not even close. So for someone to make the assertion that they've been offered peace 5 times and rejected it every time, they weren't offered peace with the right conditions for it to be even somewhat tenable long term. So therefore, if you're going to stand behind that claim, bring the goods. And I don't think you really know. If you did, you probably wouldn't be saying it, because I don't know about you, I wouldn't take the deals that were offered to the Palestinians. They were terrible deals. And even leaders within Israel have said the same exact thing. Why would they say that? They're just trying to trash their country? No. They're being honest about the fact that those deals sucked. So, again, I don't think that Israel ever really wanted the Palestinians to have a place of their own to be. I think what the long-term aims appear to be, especially put forth by the more hard right people in Israel and the folks that are consider themselves either settler-based Zionists or more ardent right-wingers, they want the land. They want the land they believe is theirs. For whatever reason, they say they believe it's theirs. They say they conquered it in 1967, but we all know that war started with aggression from the Israelis, claiming that they were under imminent threat from, I guess, from Syria as well as Egypt. And even Israeli leadership has admitted, Menachem Begin, remember that guy? Remember Menachem Begin? He said publicly, it's in writing, look it up on Google, fact check me right now in real time. He said it was used as an excuse to go in and do what they wanted to do. Read it. Go look it up. I'm not lying about that. I mean, a lot of these, this is the other thing, a lot of the Israeli officials acknowledge, look at Plan Dalet, D-A-L-E-T, look up Plan Dalet. Much of what we're seeing play out over the decades is very similar to what was written about and proscribed for the future of Israel. It's very simple stuff. And so, when you come at somebody who's read all this stuff and you say, hey, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know about the deals, blah, blah, blah. No, not going to happen. So do I think that the H group, I think that the H group wants determination for their people. Somebody says, do I think that the H group wants peace? I do believe they want a peaceful resolution to this. I don't believe they have some burning desire just to go across the border and absolutely obliterate people who are different from them. Now, did they do some of that on the 7th? Absolutely they did. And I don't even know to what extent. I've tried like crazy to try to find out the particulars of who, what, where, when, and how. And there's a lot of lack of clarity there. There's a lot of bold and broad statements being made by Israel about what happened and what happened to whom in what fashion. But the evidence to back it up has supposedly been shown to a small group of journalists. I've listened to those who have seen it and tried to get information from what they've said that backs up the most egregious atrocities, and it doesn't exist. Someone saying there's evidence, I've been told to go to this Telegram group and this website, and I've looked at all of it, and I can't find any of it. If I saw it, as I've said, and by the way, if somebody has it right now, Sarah Jane talking to Jenny Sue is not evidence, just to let you know. Something on a GoPro body camera showing somebody doing something in real time to either unalive somebody or some of the other allegations, that's evidence. Not everything can be filmed. I understand that. But not everything isn't filmed. So therefore, if you're going to come with allegations, you have to come with something, right? I mean, I could allege right now that you broke into my house and stole all my stuff. You're like, what? Well, trust me, I'm saying, I told my friend Joe you did it. Well, how are we going to possibly believe that? I'm going to video drop tomorrow. You'll see it. It's Lieutenant Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson. So you can look him up. There's a video on TikTok circulating about him, and he gives an interview and he's saying, listen, just as an aside, I don't believe a single thing that an Israeli ever says, because they lie always. It's just what they do. And so what he meant by that was he was the assistant to U.S. Secretary of Defense Colin Powell during the George W. Bush administration from 2000 to 2006. And so what he did was he just listened in and was part of the whole diplomatic defense apparatus in the United States. And he just said, listen, this is just, these are people that just don't know how to tell the truth. It just isn't in them. Now, I'm not saying there aren't good people in Israel. I'm just saying that in the leadership and the spokespeople and the government representatives who talk about their policies and their actions are complete liars. And that's a pretty bold statement, right? Pretty bold statement. So, by the way, obviously every group does some amount of propaganda. It's just the way things work in the world. But on balance, I've seen it's such a head scratcher. I've made videos about this. The way that this is what I think it comes from. This is a guess. And that is certain people have a cognitive dissonance with what I call objective reality and arguments that serve their cause. So if you have a narrative and a point of view and something happens, you always interpret it in such a way that it buttresses the thing you want people to believe. You can't just say, this happened. I'll give you an example. So let's say something fell from the sky and a 17-story building with 162 people fell to the ground and 81 of them unalived and the other 85 injured, or whatever the numbers are, right? So some people would say, hey, this hit a building and this happened to people. That's the objective reality, right? Well, the narrative would be, oh, the H group must have been there forcing these people to stay there as human shields. And therefore, it's really unfortunate, but it's their fault because they want their people to die because it makes Israel look bad and therefore supports their cause, right? That's a narrative. Now, I think that has nothing to do with reality. Has it never happened? I can't say for sure. But if you think the average Palestinian militant goes into buildings, forces people to stay there so that they can be bombed and everyone can die, that is insane. They're staying under the tunnels. If you had tunnels that protected your entire team from the number one thing your enemy is doing, which is dropping munitions on vast civilian structures, the last place I would go is a civilian structure. It doesn't make any sense. You're trying to maintain your fighting force. You're not going to voluntarily unalive yourself for some martyred cause that's bigger than, for a PR gain. That's insane. So anyway, so these are the things that I try to point out. Again, if there's ever evidence to the contrary, anybody in here is making comments to the contrary, I'm 100% open to the evidence. In fact, you can DM me here, you can hit me on Telegram, or you can contact me. There's an email address in my link tree in my bio. Hit me up. I've had people send me stuff before. I really do take a look at it, and all of it is the same old third-party eyewitness testimony. There's no actual evidence to back it up. So you have my word that if there is video evidence to substantiate any of the claims, we heard about 40 babies, no evidence. We heard about the GRAPING, no evidence. We heard about burning, no evidence. There were vehicles that were on fire on the 7th that were leaving the rave party, but they were engaged, it appears were engaged by some sort of large-scale weaponry, like a Hellfire missile, which is fired from an Apache helicopter. We also have some cockpit video that we think may be from that day. I'm not totally sure, but we do have reports from Israelis, not Palestinian people like me who talk about the issue from this vantage point, people who were in the kibbutzim that almost didn't live through it, that describe exactly what happened. And it was the Israeli military that came in to respond to the H group militants, or the T words, whatever you want to call them, that were in homes with potential hostages or captives that were just blown to smithereens by the tanks. That happened. And the Israelis admit it happened, and we have video showing it happened. So to say this is all just some sort of poppycock propaganda that's being made up to try to make the Israelis look bad, no, and that's the hard part. When you lie about stuff like this and then there's video evidence to show it happened, then you got to backtrack your lie and say, well, when things get difficult, you have to do. No, you lied about it. You said it didn't happen, and now we have video showing it did. We have eyewitness testimony of an Israeli who survived it, saying that most of the people there unalived in the crossfire or were hit by tanks, right? That's what we end up learning about. That's called evidence. Physical video showing it happening in real time. That's evidence. So again, we've heard a lot of stories, a lot of allegations. I hope that no civilian ever gets harmed on either side, ever. I think it's horrific that if anybody did any of the things that are claimed, not just unaliving a civilian, but maybe worse as far as women or children or whatever it may be, it's horrific. And I think it's to be condemned to whatever extent it happened. My understanding is that the mission on that day was to go across the border, breach the border, and go get as many detainees, hostages as possible to try to use as leverage to get many of the Palestinians who are held under very dubious circumstances in Israeli jails, and try to have some leverage to bring some people back who deserve to come back, because they very rarely did anything wrong, and if they did, they went through a military court, which children are not supposed to go through. And this is just one problem after another. It's not all Israel's fault. I get it. When somebody attacks you, you feel like you got to do something. I understand, just like America did after 9/11. I understand that. The question is, what do you do? What do you choose to do? And if you really are going after age group militants, which is an understandable response, you want to try to remove the threat to your country as you understand it, I get it. But then do that. Don't try to obfuscate and hide the fact that you're going after the militants, which I told you are mostly underground in 99% of the chance. Why would they be above ground? That's stupid. And then there may be one militant, there may be intel that one militant may be somewhere near a refugee camp, and then you drop something and you unalive with a 2,000-pound bomb, you unalive like 440 people. That's against the rules of war. If we have a school shooting here in America and one teacher is taken hostage by a gunman, we don't drop 500-pound bombs on the school and unalive 420 children, right? That doesn't make any sense. The ratio is too out of whack to justify the behavior. But somehow when it comes to Israel, they just claim that they're doing all this due diligence, all their targets go through this extensive legal reviews, and then they put out flyers, and we're the only military in the world that puts out flyers to warn people, aren't we wonderful? And then we do a little soft knock on the top of the building in case anybody's left, and then we do. Bullshit. If you believe that, I want to have the Easter Bunny and Saint Nick and the Tooth Fairy come over and run your world, because that does not happen. There are leaflets that get dropped sometimes near things like hospitals or other general areas where they want people to move, and it does happen. But most of the munitions that fall on structures in Gaza have fallen with no advance notice. White phosphorus has been deployed, which is a chemical agent that's banned under international law. It's been used over and over and over again. And so, again, I've seen things with my own two eyes. I did a video about this like the first 8 days into this whole thing. I said, hey, right when I was brand new on TikTok, I said, hey, do you believe what you're hearing in the media, or do you believe your own two eyes? And we're watching literally in real time the mass bombardment and just the sheer one-sided slaughter of a whole people that can't get away from the things that are happening to them. They have nowhere else to go. They're walled in, for God's sakes. And when they've been told to go other places, it falls there. What would you do, right? You say, go down the street, okay? You get down the street, boom. No, go a mile south. You go, boom. What are you supposed to do with that, right? How can you deal with somebody who's, quote, moral like that? That's not moral. So anyway, I would love to see it from a different vantage point. I understand there's a military argument where you can say you're softening up the terrain or whatever like that. You're not softening up the terrain by unaliving 25,000 civilians. It's not softening up the terrain. That's mass murder. Sorry. You don't get to categorize it that way. And listen, if people had nothing better to do, I hear people from Israel always claim that it's the UN. They hate us. They're so unfair to Israel. It's out of control. Do you think South Africa has some sort of historical grudge against Israel? They just decided one day, you know what? Let's target these people because we just don't like them. No, it's the behavior. It's the behavior. If there was an Arab nation that had gone through the same cycles against Jewish people, and they were mass bombing right now Jewish people who had been bold enough to fight back against the repressive Arabs, I would say the same exact thing. I just would criticize the Arab government for going about doing it the way they are. If you want to go after the Jewish militants, go for it. But don't cloak the unaliving of 25 or 30,000 people in that effort. That's been the biggest problem. And the world sees it. And that's why people are so outraged. And this is why I think it's actually bad for Israel. And if you're somebody who wants to see Israel sustain itself and maintain as a Jewish homeland, more power to you. I don't disagree with your desire to have that be the case. But what the government of Israel is choosing to do is making it more difficult by the second to justify that. There's going to need to be some sort of political resolution after this all ends. And the most fair way to do it is a one-state solution. Just everyone's in a territory that Israel claims it owns through occupation from 1967. Great. In a state. There's people that are of Arab descent, people of Jewish descent, maybe some people are Christian Arabs, whatever it may be. Just put them together in one big bucket and you have democracy and you see what happens, right? But they won't go for that because they don't want to have an Arab majority. There would be an immediate Arab majority if they did that. Because there's 2 million Arabs in the country already that identify as Arab inside of Israel. Then you have about close to 6.5 million people that are outside in the occupied territories in Gaza. And that creates an immediate majority of Arabs. And they don't want that. So they can't live with a one-state solution because of that, and they won't tolerate a two-state solution because the territory that would otherwise be designated from the pre-1967 borders is riddled and broken apart with settlements that have been condemned since they started, and even more so recently, are still going on. And every year, the U.S. and other evangelical groups provide massive funding to increase that, and many of the settlers come from the United States. Incredible incentives to come over and occupy what they call Judea and Samaria. And they view it as their historic land. There's only one problem. People were displaced once before in 1948. They've since had to re-engineer their entire life, and then people come in subsequent to that and do it again. Just imagine that happening to your family. Like, would you want that to happen? I wouldn't. I think it's a fair point to bring up, right? No one wants to be occupied and mistreated and all the other things we've learned. Watch life in occupied Palestine if you're not totally sure how things go down there. And we've seen an accelerated version of it recently with what happened after the 7th. It's sort of been like the purge. People just run in there rampant with the police and the military and these settlers. It's just like a rabid takeover. It's been horrible. So the point is, I know this is not what most Israelis or most people who are Jewish who support Israel, or even those who aren't Jewish who support Israel, they don't know much of this stuff. They just don't know. And I don't blame them for not knowing. But I do blame somebody if they're unwilling to find out, especially if somebody challenges them to take a look at something. And I've done videos about this. I said, if you're somebody who doesn't know any better, okay, you're not a bad person. If you're somebody who does know or you're not willing to know, that makes you a really bad person, makes you a scumbag, in my opinion. So anyway, it's been a bad road for Palestinians, right? And they've tried to do what they can peacefully. They've marched. They've protested. They've tried to go through the peace process. And when it's happened over and over again, they get shot at. They get unalived. They get shot in the knees, the groin. Little kids doing nothing more than waving a Palestinian flag. Boom, 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 boom. Happens all the time, month after month, year after year. What are they supposed to do? What would you do in the face of that, right? How would you want to respond to that? Now, yes, have there been incursions into Israel, especially back under the PLO in the 80s? Yeah, some horrific attacks that obviously were horrible. Cafes, buses, elsewhere. I get it. There's no place for that. And I don't agree with that. And it hasn't happened in a long time, by the way, thankfully. But more recently, what did happen, and it didn't happen in a vacuum. The head of the UN said, Antonio Guterres, he said, this did not happen in a vacuum. There's a long-standing occupation and blockade of Gaza in which this occurred. And listen, according to a situation where someone else has you blocked off, it's an act of war, ongoing act of war, or they have you physically occupied, where there's literally soldiers with guns and bullets that can unalive you and take over your home and do all sorts of other horrible things. Again, watch Life in Occupied Palestine. You'll see about it. Those are situations where you're allowed to resist. So I don't think it's fair for Israel or anybody else who supports Israel to be, oh my God, we're shocked. They started this on October 7th. No, they didn't. Israel's been doing this since 1948 and after, in a way that's very cruel and barbaric and unnecessarily mean. And I understand security. You can make the argument of security by maybe having some border checkpoints or maybe some interterritorial checkpoints, but not the network of choking checkpoints you have now, and not the indignity with which it's maintained and operated by young 18 and 19-year-olds who can tell a 35-year-old, 40-year-old dignified businessman who has a master's degree to get on the damn ground and take off his shirt. That's not okay. And they have to wait 6 hours because they just want to make them wait. And they don't even know if they'll make it home that night. Imagine trying to develop your territory under those circumstances, when all the stuff you can get your hands on and the way you can move around is completely controlled by a military occupation. And then have the nerve to say, well, look what they don't do and look what we do. Yeah, you have a free and open society with no barriers to trade and movement. They don't have that. So how can you expect them to achieve the same results with none of the money and resources that float around in Israel and none of the freedom of movement because it's under occupation and siege? I just don't understand the arrogance and the mindset of that to say that, look how great we are, why are they so much behind us? Somebody says, you are lying and you know it. Well, I tell you what, stand up for blue and white flag. Why don't we talk about it? Instead of saying in general, you are lying, let's address any one of the points that we've been discussing here, and let's talk about that one point. Because
bring them up, Chip.
What's that?
Bring them up.
Yeah, I want to. Just a sec. Let me see if they're in the queue. No, unfortunately, they're not here. I'll tell you what, though. I stand with Israel, or whatever it said. I'm not going to be rude to you. I will listen to exactly what you have to say. Stand up for Israel, I promise. And if you can get me thinking in the right way, I'd actually appreciate it, because I don't want to get anything wrong. And if you have information to the contrary, if I said anything wrong along the way here, bring me, listen, educate me. I'm starving for information that's accurate either way. So, but if in a general sense, I could say the same to anybody. Oh, you're a liar, or you don't know the history, or whatever it may be. That's not constructive or productive in any way. Let's let the audience listen into what we have to talk about in a respectful manner, and let them decide like where it may stand. I'm not going to try to destroy you or make you look bad. I don't even want to win. The victory is to exchange good information and have hopefully a consensus of what's really at the bottom. And if you disagree respectfully and say, okay, we weren't able to come to consensus. That's the point of this. So stand up for Israel. I give you an open invitation to come up and talk in a fair and respectful manner. I will not give you, I will not take, I will not mute you. I will listen to you, even if I disagree with everything you're saying. And I think others who have watched me do this before will attest that that's the way I operate. So anyway, yeah, if you haven't, there are other lives that present things in a way that's very pro-Israel, and they repeat a lot of the talking points that I think are absurd. And if that's something that if the echo chamber you want to be in is that, then by all means go to that echo chamber. This is the place where you can actually present contrarian information and have it be very open and very objective, and listen. We'll listen, because I've always said the only way that I'm able to learn anything is by listening, and I've learned some things by listening to people that I didn't know, who happen to have a much different point of view. And that's okay, that makes sense. That's a sensible, I understand that argument. And I think that's fair. All right, we do have a few guests. Voice, I'm going to let you chirp in, and I've been making you wait a while. Thanks for waiting and your patience. How you doing?
No, not at all, Chip. It's good to see you again. Hey, everybody. I'm Mark V out of New York and now in Southern California. I've been following Chip for at least a couple of months now. I want to encourage everyone who hasn't begun to follow Chip, not only take a look at his link tree and find out a little bit more about some of the other endeavors that he's involved in and some of the other channels he has to convey information. But above and beyond that, keep a lookout via TikTok on a daily basis. I had the pleasure of catching Chip on a live earlier today in which he was having direct conversations with reporters as well as livecasters out of Gaza, with a host who was helping with interpretation in between. The conversation was brilliant, and it wasn't necessarily about like, "Ooh, this bomb is going off of that." They were actually asking Chip amazing questions about like, why isn't the American public more aware, and why is the mechanism this way, and how come leaders in America haven't spoken out? They're almost as unaware in some way of how insidious the tendrils and mechanisms that control the awareness of the American public is. So that was a really, really interesting thing to see that back and forth happen. We're spreading so much awareness in so many different ways, right? Um, for individuals like I support Israel in the comments and anyone else, um, look, you can have a completely different point of view and you can even bring on your narrative. Understand one thing about this panel. If you haven't experienced it before, I want to encourage you to come up only because Chip is one of the few hosts I know that, although he has his point of view and he brings a tremendous amount of facts to everything that he shares, he really does provide you with 2 to 5 minutes of your own time to make your point, drop your points. And Chip takes care to actually write down notes and respond in kind. But be very aware, this is not a narrative zone. This is not a safe space for you to come and call people out as anti-Semitic, drop your thing and run away. If you choose to come on, be aware that you'll be facing other panelists as well as Chip questioning you on backing up the things you want to say. And we hold those accountabilities for ourselves also. So you're absolutely welcome to come up, call us out, question us, make sure that we're conveying the correct information. That's the type of that's the type of opportunity we have here, right? This is the first time the technology's caught up to being a tool that allows all of us to communicate around the channels that have been defined for us, the regular news channels that narrate our lives. This is the first time we have an opportunity to directly share with each other and not be affected by a narrative in advance of. So we welcome everyone, and I'm just glad to be here in the background. Thanks, Chip.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for putting that out there.
Hello,
Yeah, just one sec, Wow. Just one sec. We have somebody here. I think is either from Gaza or who I don't know if he's in Gaza, but I know he's from Gaza. His name is Wael, Wael, I think it's pronounced. And last time we had someone who could translate. Someone named Riri came here, but unfortunately, I don't see anybody. Unless anybody here can translate from Arabic to English. I know that Wael is going to make the effort, I think, to try to speak some English. I don't speak any Arabic, so I can't imagine how hard this must be for someone. He says he's not in Gaza. Okay, well, I'm not sure. Anyway, Wael, did you want to just address this real quick and say something?
hello.
Hello.
I am Hamza. my يعني انا مش عارف ايش احكي لك يعني. انا لو في كاميرا، لو كان بكلمك كاميرا، بس انا كمان رقمي عبر الواتساب يا عم تواصلوا معي بتتاكدوا ان انا من غزه، انا من رفح. ايام من رفح استريب تل السلطان، هي تل السلطان الرفح. Can you help me to take my يعني bread and gas and
Well, one thing I don't do on here, just to let you know, Wael, is that I don't do unscreened fundraising or money requests because it's just unfortunately it's too chaotic and I have to be true to the audience. I have to do my job, my due diligence. So I'm not at all saying that you're insincere or anything other than what you're saying. But unfortunately, that's just how I have to operate. You're welcome to connect with me either through Telegram or through my email, and I do my due diligence. And if it's something that I think it makes sense to do, then we'll certainly do it. If somebody says they want to come up and translate, but please, I can't let people come up and just make requests for money. That's just not how I can do things on here. I wish I could. If somebody said they want to come up, and if you want to come into the guest queue, if you're someone who can translate, please request. You have to press a little blue and red icon at the bottom of your screen that says guest request. Okay, just want to let you know, Watermelon B. Watermelon, I don't know if you saw the note I sent to you. A lot of times when people try to come up, it just spins out. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't come up fully. So if that ever happens to you, you need to exit TikTok, please, and then reload TikTok and then come back in and re-request. That's typically what'll solve the problem. I'll try to bring you up again, but that's what's been happening. Okay, let's let Alejandro say some stuff while he's there. Just hey, Alejandro, how you doing, Alejandro?
The half of the Israelites Jewish movement. The message of the whole world sees it, like you say, they will lie and lie, and you cannot get them out of that little hole. They're stuck on their lie, and like a criminal, the criminal's gonna stick to his story and tell you otherwise in your face when you got the evidence and showing it. Okay? And thanks to TikTok and thanks to you guys and the whole world, we already demasqueraded their agenda. Like you said, they want the land, and not just the land, but they want to analyze every soul of the Palestinian people. Right? We stated that. Now, I was listening to a major general retired, David Harris, on TikTok. He said, if the United States strikes Iranian oil sites and unalive people, expect retaliations. That's what's gonna happen. Because this is last night. I don't know what Biden is thinking right now, but if he does strike Iranian land, it's on. You know that, right? So they will lie to you. I saw this. I don't know if you remember Ted Koppel. You remember Ted Koppel, right? He had that night line every night at 9 Central Eastern Time or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
Where they show a clip of a young kid. He must have been 10, 12 years old, an innocent little kid at a checkpoint. And the soldiers are giving him commands to raise up his shirt. And you could see he was strapped with explosives. Okay? They were trying to show United States the evilness of the Palestinian people and make them think that the parents were willing to strap a little young kid that he was crying. You should have seen the fear. There's got to be a clip. Eric Warsaw, he's got the computer and he could right away. I don't know, you also. There's a clip of that. And then that's when I came, and this was like 30 years ago. It would have been like 1988, 89, 91, somewhere around the line. And I'm like, no parent alive on this world will strap his little 10 or 12-year-old son to blow, can I say blow himself
No, you can say self-detonate or something like that.
self-detonate at a checkpoint to cause bodily harm to the IDF soldiers. And right away, I'm like, that's gotta be a lie. But yet, America ate the whole show. They're like, oh, they're willing to do this. No human being is willing to attack an enemy using your own, a young, beautiful child to unalive himself for your cause. He would probably do it himself, but not a young kid. And then I'm like, they're willing to do this, posted and with Ted Capo and Ted Capo. Back in the day, the whole United States would only see the bad side of. Israel would only show on the news the bad side of the Palestinian people, and then I'm like, no. Why are you only showing the good side of your of what's convenient for you, but not convenient for the Palestinos? Because I'm gonna start using Palestino, the original word for this race of the that we know Palestinian, and it is it's unbelievable. They think they won the war, but no. The war's not going to be over because they lost the souls and minds of the whole entire world, and especially the Palestinian resistance. Once you lose the souls and minds, you're lost. You lost the war, you know? Or am I correct or am I wrong? Is that the way you say it?
Well, yeah, public opinion has shifted. Once hearts and minds, once you lose the hearts and minds of the public,
they don't even know what card to bring under the table, from under the table, under the sleeve. The show's over, and they know it. The show is over because the whole world, thanks to the phones, to technology, to Ted Kaczynski. Remember the Unabomber?
Yeah.
He was against technology, but in a way he was right. But in a way, now that I look at it, now he was wrong because thanks to technology, we can see this with our own phones and holding it on your hand. You don't have to depend on what the news, CNN and Fox and all the bought out news broadcasters, because till this day they still keep trying to show you the same movie and show you otherwise when we already know. We're not into your in compliance anymore. Non-compliance. It's totally non-compliance towards the genocide that we've already seen and experiencing every day when we wake up. I don't listen to the news anymore. I rather listen to you, Eric Warsaw, Chip, the Eskimo, like he was on last night on your show, or I think it was Eric Warsaw.
It was mine.
It was yours, and which you don't believe a cent they bring out of their pockets. I don't believe that's a real cent or a dime or a nickel. You know, the show is over, and it's by June. I believe, I predict that by June something really big is gonna happen. And as days go by, the only thing that we see is just total loss of the humanity of the Palestinian people. It's 10,000 children unalive, just 10,000. All right, look at that, 10,000 cats and dogs too. Not to mention, there's no more little animals running around the streets anymore. because they also had to pay for the cost, and it's.
Yeah.
I'm just happy that the whole world is seeing this, and there's not gonna be a hole big enough for them to hide, because there's gonna have to be a court and hold every single general, and Netanyahu, especially him, and even the United States gotta get put into international court and hold liable for this that is happening. So the United States also has to pay. I'm sorry. I mean, it's the country that feeds me and clothes me and roofs me, but what the United States has done, it's just awful. We are the bad seed of the whole world. We contaminated it all. Everything is contaminated. You know?
Yep. I agree.
And that's all I got to say. I hope I get some sleep tonight, and just I tend to get tired, so I can go to sleep every night. I do some swimming and biking, and but
Good.
and of course I gotta take my medicine to go to sleep, because it's
All right,
hard to go to sleep on a glass of milk.
good
You
luck
know?
with it, sir. Have a good evening.
Yeah.
Take care. Yeah, biking, cycling, no glass of milk. Interesting. Yeah, he's a funny guy. Yeah, I don't know if you saw the video floating around. I mean, there's one that I'm actually creating, but it talks about this very same phenomenon that Alejandro was talking about. So there's just so much mistruth put out when he said he wouldn't take a single drop of what they're selling. I agree. Unfortunately, it's just I wish there was a way to get to the bottom of some of this stuff, because I would like to see some of the evidence to understand what happened on the 7th. I'm just still shaking my head, wondering what's going to happen, because we may never know. And the little they have released to the public, I believe if they had more, they would release it, because they're trying to do everything they can to make the age group look bad. So we'll see. Just a second. Just a second, Mark. I got to give Abu Saif a chance to talk real quick, and then we're going to go to Watermelon B, and then hopefully Weil can get someone to translate. Abu, are you there?
Brother, are you all hearing me?
Yes.
All right. So I just wanted to back up what Alejandro had to say. Because remember that in the first few weeks after October the 7th, the pro-Zio people, they were lining up in our pro-Palestinian, pro-humanity lives to debate with us. And that has since waned. Every narrative they came with, every point that they came with has been destroyed over the months, over the weeks and months. And in reality, they don't have anything to bring to the table in terms of the truth. And they have been smashed. So they have their own personal little lives now where they could entertain each other and try to mislead people who are ignorant or uneducated about the topic, But they're not going to come on our lives anymore to try to debate with us, because they have no evidence. And we were saying earlier, what is not documented is not done. If you don't have it documented, recorded, factual, from a reputable source, that has integrity, then it does not exist. And the world has seen absolutely no evidence of any of the claims that the Israeli government has suggested or brought up. So we need to keep going. We need to keep educating people. I spoke to a couple of people today, and they were pro-Israel, but because they don't know what's going on, they just brainwashed from decades. They were older people, brainwashed from decades of propaganda that we have only had a few months to really try to undo. So we need to keep going. The fact of the matter is the situation is very dire and urgent. I don't know if you're seeing that they are evacuating people from Al-Amal Hospital. They are trying to totally cleanse Khan Yunis. They've got over 1 million people in Rafah right now who are under attack in tents. They're eating muddied flour. It's horrible, and I don't know what's going to happen in the few days to come, because they are walled in. There's nowhere to go. It's Rafah, and then there's a wall, and there's the Egyptian soldiers on the other side who refuse to communicate with anybody on the side of Gaza. Yeah. And then there are allegations of people ex Palestinians who need to go through the Rafah border crossing for thousands of US dollars. And I'd say allegations, but a lot of people say it's true. You know, some are as high as 10,000 US, 5, 7,000 US to get through, and these people are in urgent need of medical care and so forth. So
Yeah.
we need to step up our game. The US administration, on whom I put sole responsibility for this entire tragedy, they are not going to do anything for the Palestinian people. We have seen that they don't care. Palestinian lives does not matter. So we need to step it up. In some circles, I'm seeing that we're taking a little backseat. We become complacent. Some areas, the protest is kind of dwindling. I don't know if everyone is keeping up with the boycotts. I mean, I am. But we need to do something, because if we don't, in the next few coming days or couple weeks, we're going to see horrible scenes coming out of Rafah. There's nowhere to hide in Rafah. There are only tents with 12 people forced into one tent, like little huts. No food, very little water. So I'm just pleading with everyone, whatever you're doing, may God reward you, but step it up. Let's try to come together with new innovative ways to spread the message, and let's try to influence others, influence our governments to stop this madness that's taking place in Palestine, because it's overbearing. You know, I know my rant was a bit emotional, but it's tough seeing the stuff that I'm seeing on a daily basis, and the feeling of helplessness that I can't actually do anything, you know, substantial.
Understand. All right, thank you, obviously. Thank you. You're welcome to stay up if you want. I just have to go to give somebody else a chance. I do want to say that there is some credence to the fact that when there is a war, things can happen that are unexpected. It does happen a lot. Unfortunately, there was one of our soldiers when I was in the first Persian Gulf War that was unalived accidentally from friendly fire, although he was not following orders. He was standing outside his vehicle when he was supposed to be what they call covered up, buttoned up. But still, it happened. So it does happen, and there's inadvertent fire where civilians get harmed, or maybe there are combatants that happen to be near a civilian structure. It can happen, but the question is how frequently and to what extent. And I think that the way this has been portrayed is almost cartoonishly, absurdly one-sided in terms of making those types of claims. And I don't know if we'll ever know for sure. I guess it could be in certain cases it's happened. But like I said before, if I was an H group member, the last place I would want to go is up into the third story of a residential building with 100 people in it. That's like the last place I'd want to be. So anyway, somebody says there's somebody here who may have been either in or maybe still be in the IDF. I don't know if he's still here. Oh, he dropped down.
Oh, no, no, no. A complete Zionist who wanted to drop this thing and get out, and then he dropped the moment that he knew he was going to be questioned. It's him.
Okay, well, fair enough. But there is somebody in the guest queue named Danelle who we had a very good conversation with. I'm glad you're back, Danelle. And then I thought I brought Tisha back up, but okay. So we have, let me see who I have here. We have Keisha, and we have, I don't know if did the person with watermelons get a chance to speak yet? I don't know if I did that or not. Let me see if I can get her, and then Keisha will talk.
Hi, Tip.
Hi.
This is Brenda. So
Hey.
I just wanted to offer a perspective because Alejandro and Abu Saif said some really, really amazing points. And I think I wanted to offer the perspective as to why our programming has been so successful and why the people that are in power have been so successful at completely polarizing, what they call the good guys versus the
Yeah.
bad guys. So I think that that's something that, if anything, of this year and these last few years have taught us is that everybody needs to really start questioning everything. And that includes pretty much everything that we've been taught. All of our programming has been so incredibly thoughtfully crafted so that it all connects. So if you think about the way we were taught from infancy, like the happily ever after, you grow up, you get married, and then, you find your Prince Charming, when in reality, that's not how it works. You don't find a good guy and you don't find a bad guy. Everybody has that duality within them. Everybody can be a good guy and everybody can be a bad guy. But because we've been programmed that, we are the good guys and then those guys over there are the bad guys, that's why we're able to see, like, the person that was asking in the comments whether H group wants peace,
Yeah.
they are completely of that mentality, is that those guys are completely bad and there is just no moving up and down the spectrum of light, of the balance of lightness versus darkness, which we all possess. And I think if everybody started seeing that perspective, it would be so much more difficult for us to just say, oh, those guys are the bad guys and they'll never be good. Or, we are the good guys and we'll never be bad, which obviously we're all coming to terms with deconstructing that idea. And so I think that's why we've just been so programmed to just believe everything that we've been taught. So I do invite everybody to just start deconstructing. If there's an idea that you encounter, and we're all encountering, if there's an idea that you encounter that makes you a little bit uncomfortable, don't run away from it. Head straight towards it, because that is your trigger telling you, okay, something's not right here, but I need to figure out why. Because our subconscious reacts before our actual conscious mind is able to really process what's happening. And what a lot of people do is that when they encounter an idea or a thought that's uncomfortable, they either get really defensive or they run away from it. And so I think having these type of conversations that we have on these lives is a perfect way for everybody to start reprogramming their brains and talking to each other and understanding that there are a lot of different sides to just pretty much every story. And I think we're starting to see that. And that's what's been amazing about this dialogue, is that I think a lot of people are starting to reprogram their brains. And then, we're all seeing Palestinians in a completely different light, the same way we are now seeing that, Israel is not all light as we were programmed to believe. So that was just my perspective on that. And I hope that some people will start kind of questioning reality, questioning everything.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I think a lot of people are waking up to that, which is the good news. And there was something I wanted to share about that, and that is about the programming. Remember, this has been going on for a long time. So, the way, and this goes to other issues, by the way, too. It's not just Israel Palestine, although it is exceptionally noticeable here and very, very effective too, which is the sad part. But if you would have polled, I don't know, 100 Americans on October 6th and said, hey, what do you know about Israel and Palestine? You would have heard probably a lot of what I was taught growing up. And most people probably in America have no reason to think differently. But especially younger people now, they're seeing what's happening. And it's hard for the Israelis to make the same points as they used to, because it's hard to defend the indefensible, is what I like to say, no matter who's doing it. It doesn't really matter who's doing it. If you're doing something that's really rotten and really horrible, and you're trying to justify it with all these other explanations, people have a visceral reaction to seeing young children and women inside of buildings that have been fallen, or multiple buildings that seem to be just residential areas, right? And the military can make all these claims about how it's so moral, and it doesn't look that way. And the question is, as you're going through the territory, being the Israeli military, and you've pushed people out and you've already secured it, why would you go then and blow up mosques and schools and other buildings? Just because you can? They blew up the courthouse. There was nobody in the courthouse. They blew the whole courthouse up. So it seems like the intent is not to get rid of the H group. It's to get rid of civilians, a cavalier indifference, completely lack of regard for human life in terms of civilians, no matter how you want to phrase it. And you're trying to push the people out, that's what it looks like, but you're also trying to destroy everything in your path that you can get away with along the way. There's no military advantage of destroying a mosque or a school or a hospital or whatever else has been done. It's disgusting. And if it was happening in Israel, just to let you know, it would be called a G-side 100 times over. It'd probably be called HCOS Part 2. But somehow here it's just, collateral damage to the fog of war, right? That's the biggest point that I find to be most, kind of insulting, as if Palestinian lives aren't as important as Israeli lives. And people from Israel, this is Gideon Levy, a columnist for Haaretz, not my words. He said, the one unspoken secret about Israeli society is that most Israelis think they're better than Arabs. And it's not a point that likes to be discussed publicly, because obviously nobody wants to think that they're superior to somebody. But he said, that's Israeli society. That this is from someone who's lived there. He's older. He's in his 70s. He's seen it come and go. Okay, we had one more person. Wael, did you want to say something in English? I'm not sure you wanted to talk.
I am from Rafah. Your plane kill my people, kill my هاي بلين مزعجة مزعجة.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's see if we can get somebody up to help translate, because I'm sure it's tough to speak English if it's not your first language. I don't know exactly what Wiles' vocal abilities are, but I just don't want to put him under the pressure of having to think. It's tough to think. If I had to speak in Arabic right now, I don't know what the hell I would do. That's really tough. Just to let you know, Danelle, I don't know if you can see it on your end. You're not coming through. So the best thing to do is to leave the live and then come back in after you've closed TikTok, and then come back in. It should let you in then. I'm not taking you down, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, and I think we had Keisha that was going to say something. Keisha, I think you were next, right?
How are you?
Okay, thanks.
Well, it's been not just a few months. We met each other at the march, and I interviewed you for a TikTok.
Yeah, I remember that.
So,
That was fun. Yeah.
yeah, it was. And so I have been just going on lives left and right. So a couple of things I want to point on. And first of all, if you ever criticize Israel, you could never get through the Iron Dome. You were always crossed, and the first defense was you're anti-Semitic. That was always their first, and that held up strong for years. The second thing they would say to you is that it's too complicated. It's too complicated. You'll never understand it. It's too complicated. So now that this generation has dismantled that in a matter of months, it's just absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So the way I see it is in the very beginning, October 7th, um, you know, I didn't say anything on October 7th. And the reason I didn't post anything on Facebook or give anything is because I never said a word on the March of Return when the Palestinians were being unalived. So I felt like if I didn't say anything then, I wasn't going to be pressured into saying anything on October 7th. And if you know who I am, a lot of more rabbis, the joke is I know more rabbis than rabbis know rabbis. I've been talked about in their high holidays. I've been a guest speaker at their synagogues. And went because I stood for Palestine. I've always been that way for years. Um, but what's even crazier is that in the very beginning, we spent a lot of our time educating people. After October 7th, we had to educate people because on October 8th, like I said, I didn't say anything October 7th. I didn't say anything before October 8th when Joe Biden got on that TV and had the audacity to say that we stand with Israel. That's when I did a Facebook Live and got absolutely livid. And I was like, who the F is we? Because we don't. I have a frame of reference. This didn't start on October 7th with me. I have the history. I have the knowledge. So after October 7th, I try to host teach-ins. I live in a small community. I'm from Michigan originally, moved to Texas from California, moved up to Crockett from Houston, which is a town of 5,000 Christian white conservatives. And when I was on the board of the Chamber of Commerce. I had a restaurant where I had all kids that worked for me. When I tell you, after October 8th, when I spoke up, I said, okay, listen, let's do a teach-in so I can explain to you and give you the information so that you understand the frame of reference, so you can understand. Oh my goodness. When I tell you they came for me, they came for me. It was their idea, which is there's two very hard ideas here. You have two different groups of Zionists. The first group are the Israeli Zionists, the ones that are over there that have been on the birthrights. The more dangerous ones are the Christian evangelicals here in America. They are completely and totally dangerous. When I tell you I try to do teach-ins, they would send people to my restaurant to try to shut me down and harass. Eventually, I shut the restaurant down, rented it out, and then went on the road for marches and organizing with Palestine. And then when I came back to Crockett, I had to get a GUN. A friend of mine, I've never been one to live by the sword because I didn't want to die by it. But being here as a black woman in the deep South, they said, and I went to the black churches first to try to explain to them, as an organizer, we usually tend to lean on the black church. I had to explain to the black churches here in this small town about Israel and Palestine. Some of them knew the history, and they gave me platforms to speak. But when I tell you they were concerned for my safety, they said, you are not in the North anymore. They will hurt you. But I can't stop talking. I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to, settle in and say it's okay. So what I did was I dug my heels in harder and I went harder. I told them, I would do the Facebook Live, take the, like threw me off the board of the Chamber of Commerce. Go ahead and take it. It doesn't mean anything. Those awards you gave me, they don't mean anything. What means something is for me to try to give you a frame of reference and understanding why children that you all fight so hard for life, right? For pro-life, anti-abortionists. But you're anti-abortionists, and are you not seeing the same thing I'm seeing? But their church has them so wrapped around misinformation. I had to debunk so much information. Do you remember the babies that were in the incubator that were taken by Egypt? There's preachers going around lying, showing a Photoshop of an Israeli IDF female soldier with incubators in the back of a van. They don't work like that. You don't move babies like that. You have a whole team of doctors. You've got these preachers up here, and that's your biggest fight. Because when you're fighting an ideology like that, it's dangerous. They wrap their whole thing in with that. So the first few months were teaching and just dedicated to educating people. At this point where we're at, people have already decided. They've either picked their sides through education or religion or just stubbornness, or some just don't want to care. Where I feel like we have to go next, because I'm always a planner, I'm always an organizer. We cannot, under any circumstances, vote for Biden. I can't do it. I'm one of the Black women that organize in the Democratic Party, that get people registered to vote, that tell young people, about our history. But I'm also the one, if I built the party, I will destroy that party. I'll destroy it before we ever put up another president that will unalive so many people like that without thought. So I am seriously organizing around a third party. We need to, and not be afraid to vote third party. When you have to understand that these Zionists are planning their stuff out generations. They got a 75-year head start on us. 75-year head start on propaganda. When I tell you that we've got to get in this Senate and this House and clean that out, anybody that's taking money from APACs needs to be out. And I mean anybody and everybody. So don't you find it interesting that the only thing the Republicans and Democrats could ever agree on is Israel? Nothing else. Not gun reform, not education, not healthcare, but another country. And if you know anything about what the United States government does, United States government and the Israeli government do one thing very, very well, the best. They are the best at sabotaging governments. And what Israel has come in and done is sabotage our own government. And it's crazy. So the first thing, there's two plights to it. Chip, I'm going to send you a message because I want to get, I don't know if you're familiar with what life straws are. Life straws are a device that you can use to filter water. So it's a straw that filters the water.
I've heard
So
that,
I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a project that I have before I announce it. So I'll send you a DM about that. But what we have to
Great
do at
idea.
the same,
Great idea.
I'm sorry?
Great idea. Amazing.
Yeah, so what I want to do is I want to go to Gaza. I'll probably get as far as Egypt because I want to make sure that what I fundraise for, what I buy gets there. So I want to take a team out, that has experience as far as knows how to handle themselves in different countries, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
Our mission is to get those live straws out there, and get them across that border. So if you're interested, I don't want to put you on the spot or anything like that, but I would like for you to be part of that team. So
Yeah,
if you got a passport,
I would happily promote something like that. Of course, we got to work the details out. But have you sent a message to Quinn yet, who's on the ground in Cairo?
not yet. If you can give me some contact information, I have a few people that know people on the ground, but I need this to be solid. I've done a lot of, search and rescue here in the U.S., a lot of natural disasters, Harvey, Ground Zero, New York, things like that. But for an international mission like this, it's got to be organized,
Yeah, no
especially.
doubt. Yeah, I'm all about supporting something like that. In fact, that particular thing, I don't know who else is supplying that, but obviously with drinking water being, dirty and nasty and giving people dysentery and diarrhea, that's the worst thing to experience when you're under those kind of conditions. So yeah, that sounds wonderful. It's funny. I was just talking to a friend of mine today about that very product because he said he has one where you can go take stream water and just let it
Yes.
kind of filters it for you and it becomes drinkable, which is pretty damn cool.
Yeah, so those are lightweight. So it's not like we're taking gallons of water in jugs.
Yeah.
These life straws can be used again more than once. And the other thing is what's called a supplement tablet. So when you're not getting enough nutrition, these tablets supplement the nutrition, especially what children need in certain age groups. And the tablets, once again, are not heavy and bulky, and neither are the life straws.
That sounds amazing. I'm so glad to hear you're pushing that. And just so you know, there's it's going to probably be months before people are going to be let in from Egypt into Gaza. And even if the case is what Quinn told me was, wink, wink, nod, nod, you have to actually give people, a little extra to get a truck to go through. It's just the way it's working. So doesn't look like it's going to be as simple as like, let's just, let's go in and do something. There's a whole system that's been built around this now, which is really unfortunate, both to get in and to get out. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah, it's true. But I was talking to somebody that was able to get 11 ambulances in. And it was it
That's
wasn't
awesome.
easy. It was not easy, and that was a different time in the very beginning, but they were able to do it. And World Central Kitchen is there also, um, which is a great organization. I've partnered with them before.
So for those of you, if anybody's not following Keisha, please tap on Keisha right now, and please follow her, and that way you'll see her videos as she starts to talk about this stuff. It'll be in your For You page as a follower, so you'll get access to what she's doing. And plus on here, I'm sure she'll come back and give us an idea. Although it has been too long, we need to see you sooner next time, please. But you're busy.
Absolutely.
But no, having people like this on the team that are doing concrete things on the ground, like definitive action, that's what it's all about. That's where the rubber meets the road in life. And for someone like Keisha to come on and let us know what she's trying to lead, I just tip my cap and give you all the props in the world. Good for you.
Thank you. It's going to be a combined effort, as I always say,
Yeah.
forward together and not one step back.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, thanks for coming up, Keisha. I really appreciate it for what you're doing. That sounds awesome.
Thank you. I'll
I
be in
had a
touch.
Yeah, and
It's
then by the
Mark.
way, things like that.
I had a quick question for Keisha actually. In
Oh, I'm sorry.
reference
She,
to
she already dropped down, but maybe she's still
okay,
listening.
no problem. Quick question was as far as the efforts on the ground here, trying to go third party up and down the ticket. I didn't know if Keisha had some news in advance, considering the short time that we have going into the end of this year, if there was any particular candidate that we should be paying attention to for either Senate, Congress, and or maybe even all the way up to the top of the ticket. You're muted.
Okay, can you?
Share, yeah, before Keisha shares her 2 cents, I'm just going to share mine, and then I'm happy to hear what I want to hear you to say. So let me just tell you who some of the candidates are, in case you don't know. So the one that just took on Biden, her name is Marianne Williamson. So she's a Democrat challenger to Joe Biden. She got 2% of the vote, while Biden got 95 in one of the first primaries. That's pretty amazing. Some of the other Democratic challengers, you have Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, polling below 1/10 of 1%. Dr. Cornel West, who's one of the greatest men that's ever lived, in my opinion. He's also polling at low numbers. Who else do you have? You got named what's his name? The guy from he's a guy. What is his name again? It escapes me right now. But you have all the candidate that's independent. The one that people think has a chance is Bobby Kennedy Jr. But a lot of people don't like him for a number of different reasons. So it's very hard to be a third party candidate in the United States. The largest percentage anyone's ever gotten for the president race is 27% of the popular vote and 19% of the electoral vote, which is the actual vote that determines the president. Who are you leaning towards, Keisha? Who do you like?
Well, here's the thing. What I want to do, and this is where you and other people with a platform is going to come in, is that we need to have a discussion in a committee. Now, they're supposed to be doing a independent debate at the end of February. That's going to be live streamed. So as soon as I find that information out, I'm pushing it out. Once we all sit down and discuss who our candidate would be, like Colonel West and Jill Stein would be a great ticket. a great ticket, a reasonable ticket, a ticket that people can relate to, right? Names that we know. Once we do that, we need to have a super stream where they come up and they share their platform and answer questions. After that, we have the momentum of Thor's hammer. We can smash records. Now, I don't know if it's too optimistic to say, hey, we could take the presidency. But what I am telling you, we could do at least one or two things. If not take the presidency, put enough pressure on the Democratic Party to pick a different candidate. And then what we really need to do is focus on the House and the Senate. Absolutely. So are you familiar with, what is it, Olive Grove? Those
Yes.
ladies? Okay.
Project
So
Grove, yep.
we need to be in conversations with them and using their research and data. So we need to do this within the next 2 weeks. By the end of February, have an idea of who we're going to choose. And then as a combined, we would have the Muslim vote, we would have the Black vote, we would have the Latino vote, we would have it all combined. But what we can't do is be afraid of a third party because it's never been done before. And that's what we've always been told, right?
Yeah.
If you vote third party, you're wasting your vote. And that was always a scare tactic. But I'm looking at, okay, you got Biden that has unalived almost 35,000 people. You've got Trump, who is not even, somebody that I would ever want to represent the country, period. And then you have the framers of the Constitution and the America put the third party or put this idea in that it doesn't have to be a two-party system in there for a reason. Mm-hmm. And we need to use it. The other people are using the two-party system for their advantage. Two parties to control. Apex gives money to both sides. So either way it goes, whatever they want, they win.
You're right.
So we can no longer be a slave to the two-party system. And the thing about the Black vote, once Biden came to that Black church and the protesters were trying to speak and people said 4 more years, and when that young Black activist went back to the church and said, how dare you have that warmonger here in this church or in any of our churches, and they will only want to pander when they want our vote, what happened after that? 1,000 Black preachers signed a letter calling for a ceasefire. That's huge.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's
cool.
Historically huge, because 1,000 Black preachers is 1,000 congregations.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, great points. Let's do this. American politics is its own animal in and of itself, and we could dedicate an entire 2-hour plus live. And like you said, a panel would be good to have in terms of different viewpoints. I have a lot of strong views about
Yes.
American politics, which many have probably heard. But hey, we have to try to get good people in as we can. And also, remember, it's not always about the result. It's the process and the platform for giving voice to issues that otherwise don't get heard, which is really important in terms of shaping public opinion. So, bravo, Keisha. Yeah, we'll get that going. That sounds interesting. I'd like to do that. That'd be fun. Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you.
Really appreciate it. Really
Mhm.
appreciate it.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Keisha.
Interesting. Okay, now, by the way, there's a panelist that I want to bring up. His name is Danelle. Not quite the second, Danelle, but thank you. Danelle and I had a very interesting conversation. By the way, I respect Danelle because his decorum was right. He didn't interrupt me and vice versa. I always appreciate people who do that. So thank you for that, Danelle. But he's pro-Israel, and I took the other side. Of course, we were talking about different issues. And like you said, you can agree without being disagreeable. But I did want to let people know about the schedule because we're probably going to cover retail politics maybe Wednesday or Friday night because it's a lot to get into. That means, U.S. politics, the Congress, Senate, presidency, all that stuff. But my normal schedule is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, like tonight, from 8 p.m. Eastern time until 10 p.m. Eastern. And then on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, I go from 12 noon Eastern time until 2 p.m. Eastern time. And if you forget all that, it's pinned in my videos. You'll see it. It's like a little green banner. It has all the stuff on there. You'll see that. All these are recorded. So if you came in part way, you want to go back and listen, they go up to my YouTube and my Rumble channels, usually within a day or a half day. And if you want to find out where to get to those, there's a link in my bio. It says Linktree Chip Barnes. If you click on that, self-explanatory. It'll take you to my Instagram and the Twitter and all that stuff like that. You'll see it on the list. It includes the YouTube and the Rumble. Rumble is just another site like YouTube, just owned by a different company, but very similar. Now, as far as the rest of this goes, if people are here, we have about another 25 minutes left. Let's get the likes up a little bit. If you don't mind just tapping on the screen to create the red hearts, I'd really appreciate that. That gets more people, gets the signal to more people. And then the other thing you can do, and this is interesting, I just learned this, but if you hold the screen down for about a half a second, you get a list of all of your mutuals on TikTok. And then you can hit the invite button to ask more people to come in, because Daniel and I are going to have a very interesting conversation. I think a lot of people are going to want to hear this. Someone else at the top came in named Anna Waima. I'm not sure who they are. By the way, they were in here earlier, so I'm going to give them a chance to come up for a moment or two before Danielle and I pick it back up. But I want to thank everybody for being here. I love doing these lives. It's a lot of fun, and I'm glad you're enjoying it. So let's continue with Anna Waima, and then we'll talk to Danielle.
Hello, can you hear me? I don't know.
Yes.
Hi, my
Yep.
name's Ann Wayman. Ann Wayman.
Hi.
Nice to meet you, Chris. I'm really impressed with what I'm hearing. I'm active in an organization called Democracy Now!, and we develop tools so citizens can audit their own elections.
Okay.
So we're, I'm up to it in my eyebrows too. And what else can I tell you? Keep it up.
Okay.
We're in Southern California. We've got backers here, so.
Now, this is not to be confused with the TV program or the recorded independent news agency called Democracy Now! Is that you're a different Democracy Now!
No, it's where democracy counts.
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 Got it. Democracy
And
Counts.
we are also America Counts. Both of those are websites. The American Counts is more active at the moment, but our founder Daniel Wolf, whom you may know, Harvard graduate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, has really worked with some great programmers so that we can have voters audit their own elections. Why not? But it's a hard sell
Yeah.
because we don't know how to market very well. We're great at ideas, but we don't market real well yet.
Yeah, getting eyeballs on your site and on your social media is a challenge. I know it all too well. What are the actual websites, so if people want to go take a look? Is it .org, .com? What are the names?
Both of them are .org.
Okay.
The one to start with now is America Counts, all one word, americacounts.org.
Okay.
And you'll get to know me and get to know Dan, our programmer, Jason, and some other folks that are great.
Okay.
And our email, our contact information, and our LinkedIn stuff is all there too.
Okay, great. And so if someone was to visit there, what would they be trying to tap into? How would they be
Well,
involved?
the first thing they should do, if they're intrigued with what we're talking about, even mildly, subscribe to the occasional newsletter.
Okay.
That way, we have a way to communicate with them. You also find Dan's and my I'm theoretically the COO, that's another story, but I'll wear that title proudly. And both Dan Wolf's and my contact information is available there if you want to talk to us directly.
Okay.
But we're a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that wants to establish real audits to elections, not like we saw in Arizona, not that mess,
Yeah.
but that voters can use themselves.
Sounds good. Then for those who want to check it out, please go to the website, Democracy, and say that again for us.
Let's use the America Counts one.
AmericaCounts.org.
Yeah, that
Okay.
website is much more together at the moment. So,
Thanks, Ann. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for telling us.
hey, thanks for calling on me. I don't know how you did that, but big smile to you too. And your cat is wonderful.
Thank you. His
I
name
love
is
seeing
Fraser. He's a good guy. Thanks, Ann. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chris. Bye
Have
bye.
a good night. Bye-bye. Yep, it's always nice to see independent people doing their civic duty. And, let's face it, the elections in the United States leave a lot to be desired. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, I think we all can agree that you want a fair outcome. So if people cast their vote, whether it be a mail-in ballot or whether it be a direct vote at a precinct, you want it to be fair. And whoever wins, wins, right? That's the way it should be. Last time we had an election, we're like number 38th or 39th in terms of election transparency. Remember, we have voting machines. And the software on the voting machines from like 3 different companies who get the contracts to do this, it's proprietary. So we can't audit them. I don't know what Ann's particular approach is, but it's very difficult to find out what really happened. And there's a lot of, people purport there's a lot of double counting of votes and this, that, and the other, just shenanigans in general. So I don't know. I just don't like to see unfair things happen. Okay. And real quick, if forgot to mention one thing, which is stupid of me, but I'm an independent content creator. I'm somebody who does this part time, a little bit closer to full time than part time, but about 30 hours a week worth of work. And I'm sure the last time you went to your job and somebody says, "Hey, are you here for money? What are you doing? Are you doing this for money?" You're like, "Yeah, it's my job." So I have to pay my bills like everybody else. And I'm not doing this to sit on a pile of money because that's never going to happen on independent social media. But if you do want to chip in, I think that Anne said she likes the format. And I do try to treat people, I'm kind of a different breed, I guess, in that I try to treat people with respect, but bring up good information and, try to make heads or tails of it in a sincere way and hopefully share some good information along the way. So if you're somebody who appreciates that and you want to help out, in that same link in bio that I mentioned, I have some links toward the bottom that allow you to contribute. Small amounts are fine. I have some that do $5 a month for my Patreon, which is great. Once I get enough people following me, I'll be able to cover my bills and maybe I can do this all the time, which would be great. Anyway, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring up Danelle right now, and I'm gonna let Danelle jump on. And what's on your mind tonight, Danelle?
Well, again, my name is Daniel. Good morning from Tel Aviv. I'm a
Hello.
I'm a pro-Israeli. I
Oh,
am
can
an
I say one thing, Danelle? I want to just ask the audience. First of all, please be respectful, and if Danelle says some things you don't agree with, please don't personally attack him or say terrible things. Just be polite. If you disagree, say I disagree, and we'll cover it. Thank you,
I,
Danelle.
I appreciate that, Chip, but I have quite thick skin, so I'm okay.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah. What I wanted to say is the conditions that you have been describing in Gaza and Rafah for the 1.2 million that have been displaced from the north part of Gaza to the south part of Gaza are conditions that they are sharing with our hostages that for some reason nobody's talking about.
No, that's
Now,
fair. That's a fair point.
okay, so our hostages right now are in tunnels in humid and damp conditions. We have evidence 100% that they are being abused on a daily basis, including sexual abuse, unfortunately. Some of the hostages that were released in the first round are in serious psychiatric care right now because of what they went through. They are eating very poorly. They are being mistreated. And worst of all, and this is a war crime, they have not seen one time a representative of the Red Cross. And we spoke about this yesterday, and you said that probably you cannot let the Red Cross go and see them because the H group would be afraid that the Red Cross will disclose their locations. Right? Yeah, you're muted, I think. I
Yeah,
think you're
it
muted.
could be. I'm not totally sure about it. I mean, many of the things you're saying, I don't have any reason to doubt what you're saying, but I also don't, unfortunately, and maybe you'll share this with me. Maybe you'll have some things that help confirm it so we can be on the
Oh,
same page about it.
this is actually this is really what I'm saying is so much common knowledge. It's it's based. It's really all over the net. Just go to the net and try and find out if the Red Cross ever got to see one
No,
hostage, not even
I
one.
certainly believe that. I was referring more to the things like you mentioned, graping and essay and food and conditions, and
Oh,
I don't doubt that some people
so
experience. I
so
don't know
let
if
me
it's
tell you,
yeah.
Chip.
Well,
Let
let
me
me.
tell you.
Is it possible though that not everybody's got the same experience? They could be different from place to place,
Yes,
person to
yes,
person.
yes,
Okay,
yes, because they're not all held in the same place.
right.
And I'm not saying that all 250 hostages, I mean, it used to be 250. I'm not saying that they all went through the same thing, but we do know that okay, let's call it this way, a significant number of them are going through torture. From the 100 hostages that we got back the last time, four of the women came back pregnant, and they were pregnant from their captures. Okay, so these are facts. Okay, these are undisputable facts. But that's not even what I wanted to talk about. Okay, what I wanted to talk about is the fact that people keep saying that we are targeting civilians, we're carpet bombing, and all these words. Okay, now you're ex-military, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you know that if you're carpet bombing, Chip, are you there? Okay, if you
I've never said people are carpet bombing. Just so you know, I've never made that allegation.
okay, good. So let's skip to the next one. Um, the buildings that we are bombing, and there are about, I think, 300,000 buildings that we have collapsed, were basically empty or near empty, and the numbers speak for themselves, because the numbers coming out of Gaza, which is about 27,000 unalive, is not numbers that the IDF gave. It's numbers that the H group gave. So these are numbers that should be believed, because if the H group is saying that it's 27,000, so it probably is.
It's
The thing is,
the Gaza Health Ministry. That's what.
yeah, but that's controlled by the H group. Check it out.
It's under the administration of the H group political system in Gaza. Yeah.
Again, same. Political group, not political group. It's still the H group. Okay, and these numbers, again, they're the best that we can confirm, because it's not like anyone is allowed into Gaza to count differently. But here's the bottom line: if it's 27 or 25 or 35, okay, one thing would be very foolish is to think that we have bombs that are so smart that they only go after civilians. And out of that number, there are no HT members that were unalived. So let me now tell you, when the IDF goes out and fights, they record everything. I mean everything, both on video and also on an administrative level. And we know for a fact that 12,000 of those unalived are HT members. That's number one. So it doesn't mean that the other 12,000 don't count. They do count, and it's very sad. I'm being honest here. I'm not happy to see any civilian get unalived, but this is war. And if it, in World War II, you had 2 million Germans be unalived. You had hundreds of thousands unalived in Hiroshima. So that's, that. No, you're muted. You're muted.
Yeah, give
You're
me
muted.
1 second, because I have 11 more minutes till we have to shut down. I just don't want it to get
So,
too
so
far.
quick, one last point and I'm done.
Okay.
Okay, one last point and I'm done.
Yep, sure.
So just I'm continuing and I'm finishing. Regarding the bombing of mosques and schools, okay, there's ample videos out there, and you can Google it, that show, in a way that's undeniable, that those places were used for rocket launchers, for manufacturing ammunition, for storing ammunition. And guess what, Chip? Once that is true, those targets become, even by international law, a legitimate target. In other words, if a mosque has a rocket launcher inside it, or it has ammunition inside it, and again, you were in the military and you fought in the Middle East, if I remember correctly, and you know that this is part of the way they work, okay, it becomes a legitimate target.
All right,
That's
let
all.
me address that point. Yeah, you brought up a lot of great points. So let me start at the end and work our way back. So, okay, I don't disagree. If there's active use of the facility as a part of an ongoing military campaign, and it's in use at that time, and it's not vacated completely by the enemy, then yes, it's a target. So if somebody's firing as a firing base from a target, and you fire back at it, or you do an artillery strike because that was called in by your field artillery, yeah, that's a legitimate target. It happened a lot in Ukraine that way. But if the enemy is completely vacated, as is the equipment, and then you literally lace the buildings with explosives and blow it up as a controlled demolition, that's not engaging a target. That's destroying the facility. That's destroying infrastructure. I have, I think, about 17 videos and counting that show Israeli troops on camera, that I guess the troops filmed it themselves, like they're kind of gleefully doing this, where they literally have a bunch of people standing there like smiling, and then they have somebody to engage the detonation, and the facility blows up. Or I've seen it done to residential neighborhoods that are being destroyed, or schools, or other structures that have nothing to do with combat. And there may be instances where there's weapons that have been found. The other thing that's problematic, and again, I know that everybody has a different take on this, but I've seen myriad examples where it appears, and others have alleged, that the Israeli military stages things. I know they did it at the Al Shifa hospital, for sure. I don't know about the other places, but this is part and parcel with the problem of not being truthful. Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, I'll send you the video if you want, by the way. He said as the assistant to Colin Powell during the first 6 years of the George Bush administration, from 2000 to 2006, He said, "I'm telling you, you can't believe a single word." And he doesn't know. It does no reason. He has no other reason to say this other than just being politically honest. You don't believe. I don't believe a single word that comes out of the mouth of Israeli officials. They lie and they lie and they lie and they lie. It's a standard practice of the Israeli side of this is to completely try to lie their way through things. In many cases, because it's indefensible. Now let's talk about the buildings for a second. You mentioned the fact that buildings were being hit by stuff, and the fact that at some point there might have been a T word there. I'm not saying carpet bombing. There's a big difference between carpet bombing and indiscriminate targeting. So what it appears to be, and I don't, and you talked about the numbers, okay, and I have no reason to doubt the numbers you brought, but I don't have confirmation of them either. That's another thing I've been trying to find out is how many of the members that have died in Gaza, how many people are women, children, civilians, and then militants. I don't have that breakdown, but I've heard the claim from the Israeli side that it's at least 12,000 militants, and therefore the total, let's say the total is 27,000, that would leave another 15,000 civilians. So it's not as if there's 28,000 civilians or whatever the number is. I understand that's probably accurate. I don't know the numbers, but there's got to be some mix. It wouldn't make sense for there not to be. I don't know what the actual counts are. I don't believe that either side, and this is standard in every conflict, I don't believe either side gives accurate updates. Everyone minimizes their casualties and overemphasizes the casualties they inflict on their enemy. And I have no doubt that's here too. And then one last thing, in terms of how Israel does things, this is the hard thing. And maybe Israel in every single instance has done the right legal and steps to make casualties. And they may have. I don't know how, but they may have. But if they have, it doesn't look that way to the rest of the world. And sometimes, unfortunately, perception is reality to most people. One last thing with the hostages. And listen,
Guys,
one last thing. Hold on, one last thing, and then I'll let you go. One last thing regarding the hostages, okay? I can't say for sure. The evidence that I have, that I've seen with my own two eyes, and if there's other evidence, I mean, you mentioned if anybody did impregnate a hostage, I think that's horrific and horrible. I would be against any essay, of course, in all instances. If anybody was mistreated, tortured, beaten, not given proper food, not given proper any other life-sustaining portions of the thing, medical care, that's terrific. One last thing, but I don't know for sure. The evidence that I have seen, and I've done videos about this, was during the handovers of multiple crews of people in the initial stages, as well as the first two women that were going for a woman, as well as another female who was in the hands of the Red Cross. They all showed relatively pleasant and calm. You mentioned a drug that may have been used last time we talked. You mentioned some other things about, different, so I don't know what the drug was, some kind of euphoria drug. But I just don't listen. I have a hard time. I have a hard time stomaching those sorts of explanations when there seems to be other plausible explanations. But again, so I'm going to let you have the
Okay, thank you very much for being balanced and fair. I'm going to drop, let other people talk. Thank you.
my sheep.
Always a
Take
pleasure,
my
Daniel. Thank you very much for being here. I mean, listen, there's a good way to do things, and Daniel's, I mean, I got to give him credit. He brings what he brings, and I wish I had more corroborating evidence. I really do, because
my Mary. You, you.
hold on. Wael, if you want to say, I don't know, are you speaking in Arabic or English? I apologize. What
No, I am no lie. I am from in Palestinian in Rafah. In
Okay.
Rafah. Free Palestine. Your sister RI speak Arabic.
Yeah, Riri. I understand.
طلعها.
So really quick,
Yes,
let me
really.
bring her up. Hold on.
طلعها you speak to call يعني.
Hold on. I'm bringing her up. Just one sec. I invited her. I think she's coming up now. She's trying to
Riri.
come up. Riri, if you don't come through, just maybe you have to exit TikTok and come back, because it's doing that thing where it doesn't seem to be coming through. And we have pretty much a hard stop at 10 p.m. So we got to finish. I got to get some sleep tonight. I'm really tired.
المهم 1 minute please يعني to close. Okay, I am the battery in phone 4.
Yeah.
Battery in
Let me see
phone.
if I can get
The battery.
I'm trying to get Riri
The
to
battery.
come up. One sec. Yeah, I'm trying to get her to come up. Just one second.
في رفح.
There she is. Okay, Riri. Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Chip and everyone. How are you
All right,
doing?
let's let Wael say what he wants to say in Arabic, then you can help us
Yeah,
out.
sure. I can translate. مرحبا وائل.
الله يسعدك يا اخت ريري. انا جوالي عشان 4%. يا ريت انت من زمان جيتي. انا من رفح، فاهم كيف؟ وبحكي ماري ان انا كذاب. لا، انا يا عم من رفح، ورقمي على الواتساب بقى بدك يعني ياخذ يا عم يتواصل معي. انا يا ريت بنفع افتح كاميرا، فاهم كيف؟ انا مش عارف كيف افتح كاميرا.
اوكي
وانا ما بطلب
تشيب
يعني، انا بطلب الدعم يعني انهم يساعدوني يا عم ويقفوا معي شخصي. انا لا بطلب لا شحد لمؤسسات ولا شحد لاي شيء، لانه كل
اوكي
واحد يعني كل واحد نفسه بنفسه زي ما بيقولوا. فاهم
اوكي
كيف علي؟
خليني اترجم بس جملة لو سمحت.
لانه جوال.
So Chip, he's saying that he's running out of battery. He's from Rafah in Palestine, in Gaza, and he expressed some, being a little bit disappointed that maybe people are not believing his identity. So he's saying that he's trying to join these lives to get some support to help his family, and he's willing to give you his phone number. Try if anyone wants to call and verify. I'm sorry, I'm just translating, of course.
Please tell him that I can't do independent fundraisers all my life. I can't do
I know. I'm just translating to you what he's saying.
That's okay. Just if you can
That's
convey
all.
that message as much as it's not that I don't doubt his sincerity. It's just that if I did that, I have to do it for everybody.
Yeah. So وائل هو عم بحكي لك إنه
مقدمة
هو
فلسطين، مقدمة فلسطين بيبحثوا عنها. مقدمة فلسطين
اوكي
00972. يعني لما انا اعطيك رقم الواتس
طيب
00972
خليني بس اخبرك هو شو حكى لي. هو
ماشي.
بيحكي لك انه هو ما عنده مشكلة انه انت من وين، هو بس ما بدعم ولا حدا بشكل شخصي، هو بس يعني بدعم مؤسسات رسمية، لأنه إذا ما بقدر يدعم أشخاص، لأنه إذا بده يعمل هذا الشيء لإلك بده يضطر يعمله لكل شخص بيجي على اللايف تبعه. فهو
هذا بقول لك احمد دار يا راجل، احمد دار هذا يا راجل عيب. لا انا ما غلطت اخوي يا احمد، انا ما
معلش
غلطت.
حقك علينا وائل. يعني
لا عيب كلام. بالذات
أنا بعتذر منك، أنا بس عم بحاول إني أترجم.
انا بطلعه بخلي كل اوروبا تحكي فيه.
لا
انا عيب، انا مش من شيء
طيب
بتطبخ.
خلص وائل، أنا بس حبيت أساعدك بالترجمة، أنا بس حبيت أخبرك لحتى تفهم.
لا احكي له، انا
في
وصل
كتير
الموضوع،
لايفز،
وصل
خليني
هذه
أخبرك
القصه
في
لماري
كتير
بالذات.
لايفات موجودة على تيك توك.
لماري انا بعت لناس، بس المشكله ما فاتوا. انا
لا
بعت
خليني
لماري
بس أخبرك،
والناس.
ممكن لو سمحت
الاخ
أحكي.
عمر تواصل معي تميمي، في ناس كتير تواصلوا معي بدهم يساعدوني، وكتر يا
ما
عم
هو
خيرهم.
أنا هذا هلا بدي أحكي لك، يعني بدي أحكي لك إنه في لايفز ما عندهم مشكلة إنهم يساعدوا أشخاص بشكل فردي، بس هذا اللايف تشيب هو حكى لي إنه هو للأسف بفضل إنه يساعد عبر مؤسسات رسمية، فأنا حبيت أخبرك شو حكى.
جزاه الله خير يا عم، كل واحد بيعمل الخير بالجاز زي
إن
ما
شاء الله
بقول.
وائل قد ما بنقدر نحاول نساعدك قد ما بنقدر.
والله افتح
وإن
كاميرا،
شاء
مش
الله
راضي تزبط اخوي. افتح كاميرا، واليوم ان شاء الله راح اتصور وامسك على العلم الفلسطيني وراي الخيام في رفح.
معلش وائل،
في
معلش
رفح. لا
حقك علينا.
بدي احكي لك
خليني بس أحكي
انت.
لتشيب. Chip, he's just trying to explain that he was just trying to get support, and I think he's a little bit annoyed of some of the comments, and he was saying he honestly couldn't open his camera. Anyway, I explained to him that you were not supporting any individual
راضي. والله ما هي راضي. يا ريت
individuals.
تزبط الكاميرا، يا ريت تزبط الكاميرا. انا نفسي عارفه في صاروخ يجي جنبي عشان تصدق العالم ان انا من غزه.
لا سمح الله وائل. أنا آسفة، أنا
ايش
آسفة
يعني؟
كثير،
ايش
أنا
يعني؟
كثير آسفة.
بعدين جوالنا 2%، جوال 2%، يعني ممكن يطفي في اي لحظه. ويا
معلش
ست كل احترامي لكم وسامحوني بعد هيك، مش عارف ايش احكي. يعني انا صراحه مش
لا
عارف.
وائل سامحنا، واحنا ان شاء الله رح
اختي بتصل
انا شخصيا رح
ما حدا
احاول
بشوف
اوصل
اسم
لك.
علي.
انا شخصيا رح احاول اوصل لك.
اختي شويه اهدي شوي بس. اختي بتصل مساعدات وما في حدا باخذها، ما بتصل لمستحقينها،
انا عم بعرف وانا رح اوصل رسالتك هاي. انا بس بقترح عليك ترجع بكره تجرب كمان مره.
فيش مشكله. كل
وممكن
احترام للداعم اللي دعمنا ب1000 نقطه، كل احترام له، وان شاء الله بميزان حسناتك اخوي.
ان شاء الله وائل، وان شاء الله. ويعني هاي هم الناس سامعينك، بس معلش ما تاخذنا وائل، الموضوع ابدا مش شخصي، الموضوع
يلا جوال 2%. والله قولي لهم ان الجوال 2% لو بيقدروا يساعدوا كمان 2% الجوال، لو بيقدروا يساعدوا لو دقيقه بس 2% الجوال، يعني 2 بالضبط. هيدا حط موفر الطاقه حتى 2% الجوال. احكي لهم انه 2%
خليك انت هون موجود، هم الناس سمعوا رسالتك، وان شاء الله انه في ناس رح تساعدك.
ترجمي لهم ان شاء الله يا رب.
ماشي، انا عم بحاول والله اني اساعدك، بس تليفوني معلق ما بعرف ليش.
We got at some point we got to break into this.
Okay. I'm sorry, Chip. I was just trying to talk to him. He was apologizing if he caused any
No, it's okay.
Uh,
We can't have a lengthy conversation while we can't understand a word that's being
yes,
said.
I apologize. We were just going back and forth explaining that we cannot do this right here. And he was just trying to explain the situation with his camera. I apologize. It took some time. So I think there is nothing else really to translate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, please, I don't know if you can understand this. Tell him that I
وإن شاء
don't
الله
wish him.
بتواصل معاه يا عمي، بتواصل مع الأخ شايب، وإيش بده يا عمي أنا جاهز والله، ولو بده يدعم كمان ناس أنا أوصل لناس مصاري من غزة إلك يعني بالتحديد. بقول لهم يا عم تفضل، هي من ماري، وهي يا عم أخ ماري، هي المكالمة بالفيديو عبر الواتساب، هي يا عم مباشرة، تفضل يا عم، هي حقك من الأخ. ما بحب أضحك على حدا ولا.
I don't want to do that, but it's just going on, and we already done at 10 o'clock. It's already 3 after. We just
Yes.
keep going on and on and on and on and on. So I just can't let it happen. I apologize. My goal is not to tell him that I don't want to help him. My goal is to say that I just don't have any way of verifying who he is, where he's calling from. The camera won't come on. It's unfortunate, but that adds an extra layer of, challenge to the whole
Yeah,
process.
I
So
understand.
anyway,
The only thing he said I thought worth also people maybe know this. He's saying that some of the people who are sending support through formal organizations are not making it to the families because of the restrictions, and also like he's expressing some of the suffering of the people in Gaza.
yeah, I know it's bad. It's horrible. And
Yeah.
also they're charging extra money. That it's being resold. It's not being given to people. It's being resold to the highest bidder in some cases, which is really gross too.
Yes, exactly. So he's saying that he's expressing that at this stage, a lot of people feel like everyone
بحكي
for
لك أختي
themselves because
آخر
they.
شغلة بس عشان الجوال عنده طفى.
Hold on. Wally, let her speak, please. Please let her speak. Please continue
Yeah,
reading.
he's expressing that people are desperate. So a lot of people are feeling like they have to just get support to their family individually because they're not getting the support from the organizations, not making it inside Gaza, or if it's making it inside Gaza, they're not getting. Yeah.
Can you verify him in some way offline that between the two of you in Arabic? And then if there's something I can do, I'll try to do what I can. I just don't know exactly how to handle it.
I will try to do that. Can I say this to him in Arabic?
Well, aren't you able to message him if you follow him?
Okay, yeah, we can do that. Okay, I will message him and I will try to verify his identity.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you, Chip. I'm gonna mute myself, or if you can mute me, because my page is some.
There you go. No problem. I got you. I normally try to go as long as I can with the guests that I have because I'd like to be polite to everybody, and I just try to help get the conversation out. But that took a little longer than I was expecting. So for those of you who are in the guest queue, I apologize. I normally go just from Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Sometimes if I am not too tired, I'll go over. I'm wiped out. I got to get some sleep tonight. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern time. And then every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So I'll be on tomorrow again at noon, from 12 noon to 2 p.m. I'm probably going to go until about 2:45 tomorrow. I have a doctor's appointment at 3:30 I have to go to. So, and then just to let you know, these are all recorded. So this program, if you came in late, you want to hear the conversations or whatever beforehand, please check out my YouTube and my Rumble channel. The links are available through my link tree in my bio. So it just says Linktree Chip Barnes. If you're outside the United States, it's not clickable. You have to type in the characters that are written in my bio. But if you're in the US, there's a clickable link with a chain next to it. It'll take you right there. It takes you to a little list. It's got my social media. It's also got some Telegram groups that we operate, which I think are cool. Just check them out. It's all free. And at the bottom, there's some donation links. So if you like my style, you want to help me out, I'm independent. I don't take money from any corporations. I don't have any donors. Other than the small donations I take here, that's the only way I take any money. That's the only way I ever will take money. I'm not going to take money through advertising. A lot of people on TikTok now are taking out products. They're trying to convince people like me to sell stuff. I'm not going to do it. So I don't blame anybody else who does. It's just not my style. So any support is encouraged and appreciated. As far as next time, tomorrow, we got lots to talk about this week. Lots going on. So come on in tomorrow at noon if you can. And let me just check the queue and see who's waiting. So Tisha, if you want to come back tomorrow at noon, or even Monday or Wednesday night at 8 p.m. if noon doesn't work for your schedule, come on back and we'll talk some more. Or you can DM me if you want to talk about some more of the things you mentioned earlier. She's working on an initiative to get those things that allow people to drink, that purifies the water, so you don't have to drink polluted water, which I think is wonderful. So I just want to say thanks for everybody for being here. I really appreciate you, and I will see you tomorrow at noon. Hope you have a good night wherever you may be, or good day. Thank you.